What's up, Pod Pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you are checking out Podcasting Business School. This is the show where I teach podcasters how to love their show like a hobby and build it like a business. We're doing a podcast audit session with my new pod pal, Kira Deneen from the DNA Today podcast. She's dropping science, and I'm excited to talk to her. She's got a great show. It seems to be growing really nicely. She's got some great collaboration and some potential sponsorship opportunities happening. So, Kira, first off, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you.
Thank you so much, Adam. I'm excited to jump in and hear all of your perspective on things that I can do to upgrade my podcasting game.
Well, I've got notes, as I always do. I love brainstorming, with the monetization, with the download growth, with the audience engagement ideas. Which of those three lanes would be most beneficial for you to start in today?
So I think looking at growing the podcast in terms of number of downloads, that's what I'm most focused on right now. And I think for this year, what I really want to focus on and grow that more, because then in turn, I can charge more for sponsorship opportunities. And I think just more lead to that. But that's really the base of, what ends up being most prosperous for the show.
Okay. So growing the show, building the dream, there are basically three different categories that I focus in on. There's, of course, like social media stuff that we can do, marketing stuff that we can do, OPP, other people's podcasts, how do we leverage that? And then paid opportunities like paid podcast player ads, Facebook, Instagram ads, things like that. What do you feel out of those three areas? Do you feel like you're doing anything particularly well? What's going well? What's not going well within those three categories?
Yeah, so I think in terms of appearing on other podcasts, that's a goal that I've set for this year to try to appear on at least one a month. And so far I'm doing that, maybe a little bit more so. And so I think that's going well. I think within that, I'm trying to appear on like top science podcasts because that's where my audience is going to be. And that I find can be hard to tap into, especially at the top 10, top 25 shows.
Okay.
So I think that's something that I want to be on biggest shows as possible. But getting answers back from some of them can be challenging.
Okay. So let's talk about a technique that's helped me kind of break through the gatekeeper on a lot of those top ranked shows. So my very first podcast was called The Million Pound Mission. It was in the health space. And I used this technique. I got booked in 50 of the top 200 health podcasts, lots of top 25. Like most of those were, top 20, top 25. So the technique that I used was the Apple rankings used to be different than they are now. Now they're all kind of heaped up like top performers. But Spotify is actually a better resource for this technique now because they have a true blue top 200 list in all the different categories. So you can go to any category, health, science, whatever you feel like is going to be the best fit, or you could look at a couple different categories. And the process that I did is I started at the bottom. So we started in the shows that are ranked in the 190s. So like 191 through 200. And I would look through it and I would go, all right, which show or shows do I feel like I'd be a great guest on? And who would be a great guest for me? So they have to be able to check both of those boxes. Then what I would do is I go, okay, I'm going to invite first. I'm going to add value first. And I would invite, maybe 3 or 4 of those people onto my show. Maybe 1 or 2 would say yes. This is a long play, but it really worked well once you get them going. So now I've got somebody that's top 200 show. They're on my show. I'm making friends. And starting out about 50% of the time, those people invite me on their show back. So invite them on, add value, make friends. They invite me back. Then you go to the 180s and you start inviting out of there. Then you go to the 170s. You start working your way up. But as you do a few cycles of this, it's interesting because maybe you're interviewing somebody with the number 175 ranked podcast. And then you look at who they've interviewed and they've got somebody in the top 50 that you were just dying to interview and maybe be on their show. Hopefully both. You go, hey, can you give me a warm intro to so-and-so? I noticed they've been on your show. So now you've added value to them first. They've come on your show. You've made friends. You ask for a warm intro. They're probably going to get you on their show, but they can also bridge that gap and leap you into a top 50. That warm intro will get you a fighting chance, much better than a cold email or an Instagram DM or whatever. It's like a recommendation of somebody they've already created content with, And that just gets you slick right through the gatekeeper. So I started leapfrogging. That's how I got on a top 10 show in the health space. And that warm intro was just, you start making all these friends that are podcasters that are doing well. And they're at about the same levels where you're at or a little bit ahead of you. But just that networking factor, it worked so well. Within 3 months, I was getting booked on all kinds of shows. I was doing 2 or 3 a week where I'm on someone else's show because we're all looking for content. And a lot of people do multiple episodes per week. And like, I'm looking for people that are interesting. And so you have these conversations and it's this, you're planting seeds and all of a sudden here comes the harvest and you're on all these shows and you're doing, I still see, rewards from this sort of a technique, all the connections that I've made, even though I'm not even in the health space anymore, I'm in the business space, but it works pretty much in any niche. So how's that hitting you? How's that feeling so far?
Yeah, that's a really good approach. I think maybe I should be starting lower on the list instead of, looking at those top shows, because I think, as you said, like, it is good to move your way up. And I'm definitely in it for the long haul. I've been podcasting for 10 years and I expect to keep going for many more decades. I think one aspect that makes it a little bit difficult for my show is because I'm purely a genetics podcast. So where it's appropriate for me to be on a lot of science podcasts, if they're like, oh, let's do an episode about genetics or something along those lines, it may not be appropriate for them to come on my show if they don't have a genetic expertise. So that makes it a little bit challenging, but I think there's certainly ones that I could target that they do have something to share about genetics. But yeah, that would be the one aspect that's a little tough for me.
I've got a solution for you. You just made me smile because my little science light bulb went ping. Maybe that's just my bald head shining. So the podcast promo intro swap solves this. All right. So it's not an interview, but this can be a same reach out of, hey, I noticed, the way I used to approach this, I would go, hey, I noticed, I like to see where I'm ranked in the Spotify top 200. I noticed we're both in the top, whatever, like once I started getting ranked. And, even if you're not there, you're like, you can just be like, I was looking through the rankings, blah, blah, blah. I noticed you've got a top rated show. I've been podcasting for 10 years. I love doing podcast promo intro swaps. Here's what that is. Especially with other science-based podcasts. That way I'm sure your listeners listen to other shows that are science-based that aren't genetics-based.
Definitely.
So it's all these alternate resources. So it's an opportunity for them to cut a 30 to 40-second promo intro that introduces your show, that advertises their show. And then you do the same for, I'm like, hey, I'd be glad to do one for you as well if you want to swap. But the initial ask would be, I would love for you to do an intro for my show where you get to advertise your podcast on my podcast. And then the follow-up is like, and if you want me to do one for you, I'd love to do a swap, if that makes sense. But
I've definitely done that a couple times of like ad swaps and everything. Because usually it's pretty easy. You can just give each other bullets and even do host read, which is really nice. But I definitely find some podcasts are interested in doing that. Others are like, they're not open to it. And I'm always surprised by that. I'm like, really? You don't want to just do like free advertising for each other? Like, you're missing out.
Yeah. And that's people's personal preference. Sometimes they don't like to mess with their process. Like, but I've got this specific music and blah, blah, blah. So that you'll run into that. But I think if they aren't a good fit, then we definitely look for an interview. Then you look for the swap potential. But I would go back with anybody that has a decent sized show that you've interviewed already and start going, hey, I want to try to add a science-based podcast promo intro swap to all my episodes. Would you be interested in being one of my first ones? It's kind of first come, first serve. You'll be on an upcoming episode. Your episode was really well received. You could even have them shout out what episode number their interview is on.
Yeah, we definitely do that a lot. Like sponsors that I have on the show, if they've done a full episode before, we're like, oh, go back and listen to episode 170 because we explored this topic way more. And like, yeah, I definitely like doing that.
So that is going to be an easy way. And these promo swaps, I see great results from them. Like it's crazy. It seems like sometimes, especially if you've already been on the show as a guest, people kind of know your story. It's like that little reminder of like, oh yeah, I really wanted to check out her show. I didn't for whatever reason. Now that's that little reminder and it's always there. So I think the rankings technique, really reaching for podcast promo intro swaps, anybody that you interview, I would follow up with that. Hey, I'd love to do a podcast promo intro swap, later on down the road to space out from your actual interview so you get a second exposure to my audience. These things will really work and they don't cost anything. It's just a little bit of your time. So, have I sent you my template that I use for that? Because you should definitely record one for my show, because anybody can do it for Podcasting Business School. So I'll send you my template, and that way you've got it and you can lay down some audio for an episode coming soon on Podcasting Business School.
Sounds awesome.
Okay. So growth wise, have you tried any of the podcast player ads yet? Anything like on Overcast or any of those?
So that's on my radar to check out. Because we are a monetized podcast, I do have a marketing budget. So that is something that I want to explore. Do you have any suggestions, Spotify versus Overcast? Like if there's anything you've seen that's particularly more successful than the other?
Yeah, I would do Overcast. The ad prices have started to come down because I've been talking about it less. I use like secret code words on the show because it's all volume based and demand based. So the science category has been coming down in price, and that's a decent category. I've had clients that do pretty well in it. So I would keep an eye on that. So it's demand based pricing, and they only allow 5 advertising slots, and then they say it's booked. You can't book anymore past that. So I like to look at that category. I would just go on overcast.fm and watch science every day for a couple of weeks. And when it opens up, you'll notice when it goes to 1 spot open, 2 spots open. I like to try to hold out for 3, 4, or 5, because that's the price goes down. If it goes to 5, you can kind of hedge your bet and be like, I can jump on it now. I can wait till tomorrow. The price will go down every single day until someone actually
I didn't know that.
something.
That's really good to know. Wow.
So it's a sliding scale in pricing. Do not get on the wait list for categories. That drives the price up. All right. So we don't want that. That screws up the whole process of getting cheap rates on Overcast. Shoot for $5 or less cost per acquisition. So the acquisition metric is a new subscriber. And so if you're paying $5 or less, so I just did an ad run in the sports category for Podcasting Business School, which some people are like, why would you do that? Well, to me, it's not what category am I in. I'll advertise in business, I'll advertise in education and do pretty well. But I'm thinking, what types of shows outside of my category are my ideal audience members listening to? So for you, maybe look at technology. Okay.
Yeah, technology, health, education. That makes sense. It doesn't have to directly be science.
Yes. So I bought a sports ad for $215. I ended up getting 45 new subscribers. So well under my $5 per new subscriber. And those are subscribers, not downloads. Sometimes people are like, 45 downloads. I'm like, no, 45 subscribers. Listening.
That's the ideal.
Yeah. Listening to my 200 plus episodes, binge listening, that turns into hundreds, if not thousands of downloads, which is what we want. Power users. So, I would keep an eye on those tangential categories like we talked about. But I think some good homework for you on this. Go to overcast.fm, set a reminder at the beginning of each day or the end of each day for like 2 weeks, and just get a feel for the flow of the pricing. And if you're about to buy an ad, I have charts on I look at it every day, and I've got good price, bad price. So if you're like, hey, I'm getting ready to buy, what do you think? It's at this price. Just ping me and I'll go, I'd hold out a little bit. I've seen it. Because like the business category, sometimes it's $2,000. I've paid $400. It's that big of a swing where like I'd like to save you $1,500. So you can go spend that on a mortgage payment or something. Let's do that instead.
New mic or something, right?
New mic, coaching, you always reinvest. Yeah. So I think podcast player ads with Overcast. I've got another platform that I'm putting in the notes that I'm going to send you that I do not mention them by name on the show because I don't want to do what I did with Overcast and drive the prices up. So that will be coming in encrypted messaging
sounds good
with the notes.
Top secret.
So you got that. I also wanted to inquire about lead magnet newsletter situation. So what are we doing? Do we not have a lead magnet right now?
No, I don't.
Okay. And why is that? Is it just like a time thing or?
Honestly, I'm not sure what I would offer in particular.
Okay.
So yeah, I've thought about, okay, what could I offer so that I could capture more email addresses and be able to grow our email list. But I'm not sure exactly what that would look like. I'm certainly not against it because it certainly works. Like I've done that as a consumer.
Yeah. Okay, let's just brainstorm some ideas. I always encourage podcasters, if we can build your list, if we have some sort of like that's a really great asset that pairs nicely with having a podcast, because we control the feed, we control the content on the podcast, same thing with email communication, and some different ways that you can monetize. So like a downloadable genetic blah 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 checklist or like a resource guide, and this is where you kick affiliate links and your sponsors and going here, it's all curated in this one spot. And like I told you, I'm sending you all these notes with all my recommended resources. Those are all affiliate links, but they're all discounts for you as well.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you have something like that could be a quick download with all the links that people can use, and that's always updated. So as you add a new thing, it's there, it's live, it gets updated, they get the update. Something like that I think could do pretty well. What do you think?
Yeah, I could do something like we have a lot of authors that come on the show. So books that I've read that I really enjoy that are in the genetic space in some way. So even just having like a running list of those and like, because people ask me all the time, like, oh, like what books do you recommend? So I think that might be something cool. And then I'm advertising each individual episode because I'm like, oh, read this book and then check out the episode with the author. Okay,
Yes.
that's a good idea.
Okay. And that's easy to do. That's like
very easy. The work is already done. It's just compiling it.
Yep. It's curation. That lead magnets, a curated lead magnet works really well. You're saving people time and you're giving them like an action step to go like in here. If you want to dive a little bit deeper, and create binge listeners, let's do this.
Yes.
But I like the idea of like recommended books. I would Amazon link that up where you get your referral kickback for book sales. And then attach it to the episode. Brilliant. That's exactly what I'd recommend. And then if you have any discounts on genetic testing, health products,
all of our sponsors, like 30 plus sponsors that we have. Yeah, certainly.
All of that listed in there. It's like, and call it like your discount bundle and curated reading list or whatever. Like it's a resource. All right. But you'll build your list and you'll make money off that when people buy stuff, which this is
especially when they use our promo code like DNA Today and everything. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So I like that a lot. And mention that's always being updated. It's, you'll always get the latest and greatest. Then that gives you a reason to email your list. So when you do an update and you add a new featured sponsor product, then you send out an email going, hey, everybody, we got a new sponsor. They've got a new discount. Make sure you check out this episode to find out about them. Go to the resource guide. It's already updated, blah, blah, blah. And that is something that your sponsors will love too. Like
part of the sponsorship package.
Yes.
Bigger because we certainly are always adding new things to the sponsorship packages. But I think that's another really great benefit.
It's a new little sprinkle of the herbs and spices. Like, oh, we're going to do a news blast that announces your participation into our resource bundle with your codes and all the stuff. That I know sponsors, they love that stuff. The little extras. So yeah, I think that's going to be, I feel really good about this, Kira. I think, like you said, it's going to be an easy thing to knock out. You just curate a little bit, add all those links and start talking about it. And all of a sudden we've got an email list and like, again, like you said, you're gonna make money off of these links. So that's huge.
Beef up the email list because I've kept track of anyone that's ever emailed into the show, all the sponsors, and the guests that we've had. So we have all of that in a spreadsheet. So certainly time to take advantage of emailing them more often.
Yep. And so from a monetization perspective, I had a few ideas. Like, are you against the idea of hosting some sort of like an online summit workshop thing? Because I think you could do well with that if you wanted to do it. Some people are like, not my jam.
No, it certainly could be. I think it depends what it would be about, but something that I would think about. Yeah.
So, like you've got great content. You've got a loyal fan base, and people that into your stuff are like into your stuff. Like they are.
A lot of people have been listening for years.
Yeah. Yes. So if you have like a genetics jam session where there's like a quarterly workshop that maybe has a specific theme, or it's like I would look back over the previous quarter and go, who were the most downloaded episodes? Who are people that are really vibing with my audience? Invite them to come back and speak at the workshop have like 3, 4, 5 speakers, and this would be a paid workshop. So maybe you're charging in the health space, you can usually get away with $47 to $97 on a ticket for something like that. Your speakers will have an affiliate where they are able to promote and get a kickback off of ticket sales to their audience. But if they have programs, products, and services, you're getting your affiliate kickback if they pitch that at your event and something leads to business for them. But I think your audience would enjoy something like that. You've been doing this for so long. Like, hey, we're getting the band together. We've got here are your 5 speakers. You can even let people vote on like which speakers they want to create some social, or like maybe not vote because that may hurt some people's feelings, but like put something on like your Instagram story going, out of our last 10 episodes, who would you love to speak at our next summit, our next workshop? Who do you want to see? And then you screenshot all those and then tag that person and be like, it looks like you're invited or whatever.
Yeah.
And,
That's a good approach.
I think that's something that, like I said, your audience seems primed for that. Like, you've been doing this for 10 years and haven't done this yet. Most of the time people try this after like 10 days. No one showed up.
Right. That's a little tough.
Why does my audience suck? No one showed up. I'm like, you've been doing this for 10 days.
And we've done a couple live events. We didn't charge for them, but for instance, so I'm also a genetic counselor. So when people get into genetic counseling school for grad school, that's like a match day. So you find out. So we've done some live events where, okay, come celebrate match day, find out people that are in your program and everything. So, we definitely started that in 2020 because that everybody was sitting at home. They couldn't go out to celebrate. And those were really, really, really well received.
Yeah.
So,
okay, good. So I think we got a solid idea there. I would consider that kind of a second tier back burner idea since you've already got sponsors. That's rolling. First tier action steps. I really like the podcast rankings technique that we talked about at the beginning of the episode. Look at the podcast promo swap potential. Like if you're getting on 1 to 2 other people's shows per week, that's going to be really great. Like that's a nice little goal. But also if you could do 4 promo swaps per month, like average on 1 per week that you're putting out on someone else's show that's also swapping with you, that's another good metric to track or a goal to set. I think the golden nugget may be this little downloadable opt-in things. I like it's building the list. It's easy. Your audience is going to love it. You can potentially monetize. Your sponsors will love it. So I would put that to the front of the line. Honestly, I'm like,
yes,
let's get that created in the next week.
Yeah. Yes.
So
we're like right on the same page there. Look
yes,
at that. Yeah.
Yes. So, all right. We're running short on time. I want to make sure that you get to shout out your brand, your show, your website. So if people want to dive into what you've got cooking, Kira, where do they go?
Yeah. So if you are intrigued by genetics, genetic technology like CRISPR, genetic disorders, different careers in genetics like genetic counseling, you should definitely check out the podcast. It's DNA Today, as we've been talking about. You can find it in all major podcast apps. You can also go to dnapodcast.com. We have over 175 episodes on there. All of them can be streamed. And episodes since 2021 are also available as videos on YouTube. So we switched to video interviews. And if you have any questions, you want to reach out, you can email me directly at info@dnapodcast.com and connect with us on social media. Just search DNA Today. So thank you so much, Adam. I have a lot of homework to do, and I'm very excited about that.
I'm that teacher. I give homework. So if you all are listening in and you're like, I want homework from the big guy, get signed up, podcastingbusiness.school, get on the podcast audit list and come on the show and we can jam out just like my friend Kira here. We gave you, hopefully everybody out there listening, a few ideas today as well. And that's always the goal. So I am going to wrap this up as I always do, wishing you all health, happiness, and many downloads. We will see you all next time.
All right. Thank you so much, Adam.